You can sew adorable baby sneaks in very little time. This is a great project for beginners. The PDF pattern is available for sale in Made by Marzipan's Etsy shop. Right now, I'm offering a free bonus with baby sneaks. I'm including a pattern and video instructions to make baby tuxedo shoes. To see the baby tuxedo shoes video, click on the link above. Let's begin by talking about materials. It's important that you use a no-fray material such as leather or vinyl. If you choose leather, make sure you use a heavy-duty leather needle in your sewing machine. You can also use fleece, but they will look more like slippers than sneakers. When selecting vinyl, make sure you choose flannel-backed vinyl for the main shoe portion. These shoes are unlined, which makes for easy sewing, but you want the inside of the shoe to be comfortable. You can select regular vinyl for the contrast color. It's best to use 100% polyester thread when sewing with vinyl. Begin by printing the pattern pieces. Be sure you've selected no scaling on your print settings. Use the pattern to cut pieces from your material according to the instructions. Avoid pins when working with leather and vinyl, as the pinholes will show. The pieces are small enough that you can hold them in place while cutting. Cut 2 vertical snips in the toe piece as shown on the pattern. You'll be threading the elastic through these later. Set your machine to a longer stitch length. Use a scrap of the material you're using to play around with stitch length and tension until you're happy with it. Cut a piece of 1/2 inch elastic to 10 inches in length. This will become your shoelaces on the tongue piece. Fold one end of the elastic under 1/4 inch to prevent fraying. With the raw side of the elastic against the wrong side of the vinyl, sew in place by the upper right edge. Continue top stitching along the curve of the tongue piece, 1/8 inch away from the edge. Now make the other side match by sewing along the curve with a 1/8 inch seam. Be sure to keep the elastic out of the way of your stitches. Next, we'll set the eyelets. You can buy these at any fabric store. They cost about $3 for a set of 25, with the setting tool included. Follow the instructions on the package. Make the middle pair of holes first, then add a set above and another pair below. Now we can lace the tongue piece. Pull the elastic up through the top eyelet on the right. Go down through the one on the left, then up through the middle one below it. Cross over, go down, and back up through the one beneath it, then over to the bottom left. Tack the elastic in place with a few stitches along the bottom. These stitches will be encased in a seam later, so you don't need to sew all the way across the bottom. Sew with a 1/8 inch seam. Now we'll add the tongue piece on top of the toe piece. Both sides should have the vinyl facing up. Be aware of the slits on the toe piece. You don't want to accidentally sew those. Next, sew the sides of the tongue piece directly on top of your previous stitches. Set the toe piece aside and we can make the heel piece. Lay the contrast band on top of the heel piece at the narrowest part. Sew the band with a 1/8 inch seam. Then sew along the bottom edge with the 1/8 inch seam. This will create a casing for the elastic. Trim the ends of the contrast band to follow the curve of the heel piece. Now that all of our pieces are assembled, we can form the shoe. Lay the toe piece face down on top of the sole. Line up the middle of the toe piece with the top center of the sole. Begin sewing in the top center using a 1/4 inch seam. Once you have the center tacked down with a few stitches, manipulate the right side of the toe piece to line up with the edge of the sole. The trick to making a perfectly formed shoe is to simply follow the curve of the sole. If you have the option to keep your needle down while sewing, it's helpful to do that while lifting the foot occasionally to turn the fabric. Sew until you reach the end of the toe piece. Now we need to sew the left side in place. To do this, line up the left edge with the curve of the sole. Start sewing from the bottom of the toe piece and work your way around to the center of the toe, where your previous stitches began. Next comes the heel. The contrast band should be at top. We're going to sew this on the same way we did the toe. Match up the middle of the heel piece with the bottom center of the sole piece. Sew a few stitches in the center, then manipulate the fabric so that it lines up with the curve of the sole. Now we'll sew the other side, beginning at the front and working our way back to the center of the heel. You can flatten the toe piece out of the way if necessary. Line up the edge of the heel with the curve of the sole. Cut 10 inches of elastic. This is more than we actually need, but having a little extra makes it easier to manipulate. Use a safety pin or bodkin to thread it through the 2 slits on the inside of the toe piece, then through the contrast band casing. Remove the safety pin and pull the 2 ends of the elastic to tighten. You want to pull it tight enough so that the casing begins to pucker a bit. Switch to a zigzag stitch on your machine. Pinch the elastic and sew together close to the shoe. Then trim off the excess elastic. Rotate the elastic a bit, tucking the sewn part into the heel casing. Turn the shoe right side out, gently poking out the seams from the inside. It's helpful to roll the seams between your fingers to make them crisper. All done! Baby will look adorable in these new sneaks. Don't forget to try the included bonus version of baby tuxedo shoes. This was a Made by Marzipan production.